Hello and welcome to SirToshi's podcast. So I've got on my show today, we've got J.Swan, who has recently been reaching out to me, wanting to have a chat with me, and he's done this awesome kind of like, got this wood art of my image, which you can see on the screen here. So this is the first time on my show. We're going to be having a chat. So let's get into it.
SirToshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong, them transactions flying free. Just wait for the terror node, you'll surely see.
There we go. Tim, are you there?
Yep.
Excellent.
I can hear you.
Brilliant. I can hear you loud and clear as well. So this is awesome, having a first chat like this to somebody who has reached out to me saying, look, I've got this, listen to your show, it's been awesome. So for anybody else who might not know who you are, just give yourself a brief introduction and tell everybody what you know.
Well, there's lots of places I could start, but I guess since I found you on YouTube, I could just probably mention that that's one of the things that I've done is make a few YouTube videos here or there on my channel. I've oh wow, I'm driving a truck right now, and this is the first time I've ever been on this road, and I had a Cybertruck pass me.
Oh, no way.
Interesting experience right there. But yeah, right now I'm for a job. I've been driving trucks. That's been the case for a few years now. I used to work at a company that did formal verification related stuff, but that was some time ago. Since then, software related stuff I've kind of done on my own. But yeah, YouTube was one of the things. One of the things that was more popular, I'd say, was a calculator programming series. I always knew how to program a calculator, and back in 2013, I just kind of decided, hey, instead of showing this to other people all the time, why don't I record it, make a video, put it online, and that way anyone in the world can see it. And so I did that, and there was a lot of people that appreciated it, even though it was just really simple code, just really, I would just do it to relax in between my studies. There was a lot of people who appreciated it, and that's just one of the parts of my channel. And as far as BSV, so I can explain that a little bit. So
when did you first find Bitcoin?
So it depends which one you're talking about, but if you're talking about BSV, I only really knew about BSV and Craig Wright, I would say, at the end of a year and a half ago, about the end of 2022. And I noticed that I had made a small purchase, I think just in January of like 2023. And before that, I didn't know anything about it. I think back in 2017 or 18, I think I remember see, our company was actually hired by the company that works on Cardano. And I remember seeing, I don't know if I should mention too many names of companies and people, but I guess Charles Hoskinson is, famous enough I could mention his name. But I remember him saying something on Twitter, and then some other guy on Twitter, and I don't remember who it was. It might have been Craig, but I just remember getting this feeling of like, I want to know more about what this guy was saying, because something just seemed a little off about it. And Charles was kind of getting on his case saying, hey, you're always claiming your credit. And I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Craig or someone else, but that's all I remember at the time. But since then, I don't remember hearing anything about it. I don't remember knowing anything about it. There's been a few years. I haven't really worked in technology for a few years now, but I remember just telling my friends and family, hey, we need to actually start using some system. I don't like what's happening to the US dollar. Maybe, I was thinking Monero might be a solution. Filecoin was one of the things. I kind of assumed, BTC, most people think is the real Bitcoin. I kind of assumed, okay, BTC doesn't do smart contracts, so it's not going to really solve all our problems. maybe we can use like Ethereum or Cardano or something like that. And then kind of that information flipped on its head. Obviously, when I started listening to a lot of talks by Craig Wright, and too many pieces just fit together for me right away, and too many things just made sense. And I started realizing, I questioned, why is everyone calling this guy a fraud? Oh, because he didn't sign. I was like, okay, but prove that he's a fraud, So I started listening to him, and I start realizing, man, this guy is. It reminds me of some of my own experiences in my own life, even, where I feel like I've tried to explain something, or I've tried to communicate with others, and they just kind of jumped the gun and came to their own conclusions a little too quickly. That's how that's kind of how I felt about him. But on top of that, can't remember his name, but there's a guy who made there's a guy from California who also is a YouTuber. He makes some videos about explaining why Craig is Satoshi, but he does it in a very calm, well explained, like he does it very well, but he also doesn't really understand the technical aspects probably as much as I did, because I actually understood Craig's arguments about, like, say, the networking or the kind of the like the Turing completeness, for example. Like, I understood that because that's specifically something very similar to what I've studied back when I was studying computer science. It just made sense to me. You don't need looping, or you can actually create looping by incrementing state blocks, basically. And this is actually something I was thinking of doing recently, because I was thinking, we could actually make a recursive, basically a recursive programming language that essentially has its own heap access, like memory access, to write smart contracts on BSV. And we could, but obviously I don't think I could really compete with the S-crypt guys. Maybe I would make something that would work like in conjunction to what they're doing. So go ahead, ask me anything maybe more specific if you want, but that's basically the general, I guess, my general background when it comes to Bitcoin.
Right. So do you remember the year or when it was you first heard the term Bitcoin?
I don't know exactly the first time, but I do remember I had actually joined the U.S. Army to pay for school that I was going to do later, to kind of help me get there's benefits in the military. So I was in for a couple of years, and I remember, I think I was talking with some other guys in the military, and they were asking me about Bitcoin because they knew I was already interested in computers. I had already taken a year of college before that, and was studying computer engineering and computer science. So it was something I was already interested in. And I think the only thing I could tell them was, it sounds like it makes sense. Like, it sounds like it could work, but I don't really know much about it. I couldn't really answer their questions because I didn't really know. It sounded like a project that was a little more complicated than what they figured I understood at the time. So,
well, that's actually quite telling, really, when you've got members of the army, going up to a computer programmer saying, can you explain what Bitcoin is? Because that shows that the curiosity is there. That shows that they're actually interested in it.
Sorry, I didn't mention the date, but I think that was like back in like 2000, might have been 2009 even, or 2010.
Really? You had guys in the army asking about Bitcoin in 2009 and 10? That's crazy.
Or 2000, it could have also theoretically been 2011 or 12. I don't remember. Could have been anywhere in that window, actually, because I was actually on the island. I've been to Okinawa, and I was on the island in the end of 2009, in the beginning of 2012. I was there for a good 3 years. So.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing, because the majority of people didn't actually really hear of Bitcoin until the WikiLeaks saga, and then obviously Silk Road. That's what got the mainstream involved in Bitcoin. So to have sort of people in the military asking about it in those early years, that's really quite something. Um, I, did you ever ask them as to why they were curious about it? Because I mean, back in the really early days, it wasn't really anything. Nobody knew anything about it. It didn't really have a particularly exciting price, you know. But that's really quite fascinating if that's your experience. Because I mean, it was actually my mother who told me about Bitcoin when she was like, oh, there's this thing in the newspaper and people are getting really excited about it because it's nearly hit £1. And I was just like, yeah, well, a euro's nearly £1, dollar's nearly £1. Just let me know when it hits £1 sort of thing. So that must have been around 2009, 2010, and that was crazy. And I'd completely forgotten about that conversation until I looked at it again in 2016, and by then it was already 400, around sort of like $400. But I didn't. I'd actually forgotten about that conversation that my mother had with me. Until years later, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is what she was talking about." And and now I'm balls deep in it, for want of a better word. And it just blew my mind that somebody could have created this. I mean, how was your fundamental understanding of it? Obviously, being a computer scientist, your technical understanding is there, for being Turing complete. But did you understand the fundamentals of why Craig had to use a pseudonym and things like that?
Actually, a lot of your channel makes it a lot of things that I kind of maybe would just think maybe off the cuff, and you kind of have a more clear understanding, like related to law or like definitions of commodity or what they're doing, what Meller's doing with the written legal statements, things like that.
Yeah,
but when it comes to like the computer science stuff, actually, it wasn't until later on. So I took some really good classes, say 14, and some of those classes, just my mind had to be focused on these different types of, whether it was state machines and things like that. So 2012 to maybe 2015, I was taking some good computer science classes again. And so then after that, when I just recently, when I heard about BSV the other year, it just made sense to me, because I've gotten in arguments. I've come back into my same university, and I remember getting in an argument with a freshman about Minecraft being Turing complete. I was telling him that it was not actually Turing complete in the same way that Conway's Game of Life was, unless you used command blocks. And he was telling me, well, I could make an infinitely long redstone computer. And I told him, well, you have to change the block generation. And because I understood the definition, you didn't need infinite memory, but you had to express some system that had an unbounded pattern to it. So in Conway, you can run a simulation on a small computer that has limited memory, but the definitions of the rules of the game of Conway's Game of Life is that there's no limit as to how far these little blocks, if you will, can go out. And so that's an important aspect of understanding these concepts, is understanding what actually is Turing completeness. And when they made Ethereum, Vitalik, I don't know if he understood this, but they had these commands disabled in BSV, but all you don't need to have gas fees and tell a node, hey, you need to run this loop. All you actually need to do is update the state of your computer program. And I'm going to steal a term here because I worked at a company that was, they had a formal definition of C that was constructed on this other layer of math called matching logic. And then they had a proprietary system built on that. But basically, they had something called a configuration, which is not just the state of a program, but it's actually the entire program itself, like the state of where you are in the code. So if it was procedural code, it would include all the code, and it would also include where you are in the code, as well as the current state of all your variables and all that stuff. So it's like not just the state of your variables, but the state of everything. So if I sent you a configuration, in theory, you would be able to take that and then simulate it on any other machine. You have all the information that you need. And so basically when Craig was telling them, hey, you just have to do it's Turing complete, you just have to do the looping a different way, then they didn't seem to, Nick Szabo or whoever didn't understand that at the time. It didn't seem like, but in 2015, that video, it seemed like he clearly understood that, but Nick Szabo was like leading this conference here, and he didn't know what he was talking about. And so I was like amazed because they kept pushing this guy away. I heard somebody made fun of him, like he got in the elevator and they told him, oh, you can't be a developer, you're wearing a suit. We don't wear suits here.
I think that was Peter Thiel.
So I was like, how do people, do that? How do people treat people like that? If Peter Thiel says that, I'd be, I don't know. That's because I appreciated his talk where he explained why Google grew. He explains like that they not only had an algorithm that works 10 times better than the other ones, but also that it scales because when you get more users, it works more efficiently. It provides more information to everyone searching.
Yeah, and is there anything about sort of like the career? Well, is there anything about Bitcoin that really gets you excited about the future in terms of its capabilities? Any sort of unique features that you've spotted?
So, I was even trying to convince people that I knew about NFTs because before I knew about BSV, I was just confused. Why don't people figure out how to just use these systems? Because I figured we could put information. Just the fact that you have information that's immutable is really useful. And triple entry accounting systems, that's huge. That's I would hope a good accountability, not bad accountability. When Craig explained the difference between like private and secret, or traceable and private, or whatever, those concepts, it started to make more sense to me because I started realizing, this is probably the better way to go about this. Instead of being rebellious to the government, instead we should be fixing what the government is already supposed to be doing and making it actually work better. Because a lot of what the government does and a lot of what the government is supposed to be doing is actually good, useful stuff, but they need help doing it. Not everyone understands technology. Not everyone understands mathematics. In fact, one of the things I complain about a lot is our voting system. We vote for a president using just first votes. And if you look at Condorcet criterion, for example, if you ever look this up, you'll either confuse some people because they'll just say, they'll be too simple-minded and they'll just say, well, it sounds like if everyone gets one vote, then it's fair. Well, they don't know what it's like to introduce a twin of a candidate into a vote. If you don't have the Condorcet criterion, then all you have to do is have somebody similar to someone who's already running, and you can cut their votes in half. So that's that's math. But then you go talk to the mathematicians and they'll say, well, Arrow's theorem proves that we don't have a voting algorithm that fulfills everything that you would want in a voting algorithm. Well, it turns out that if you actually read the criterion, a lot of those criterion are actually not necessary. Like saying that you don't want to have a tie, like that doesn't matter if you have a tie or not. If there's a difference between going 80-20 one way versus in one voting algorithm and then 20-80 the other way using a different voting algorithm, that's a big difference. And if you have the possibility of an exact tie, who cares? That means you actually have a tie. So like Arrow's theorem doesn't matter, but I try to explain that to people. So that's just how the government is. It's in my mind, you have corrupt people, but you also have good people that are doing their jobs and they're trying to do the right thing. And it's not just inherently corrupt. It's not just inherently evil. It just is what it is. It's the government. It's just like a position. It's like, is your CEO of your company, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? But just being CEO doesn't automatically make him a good guy or a bad guy.
That's true. That's true. I think I'm really excited about the economic benefits that Bitcoin can bring by producing this transparent ledger. Where data can't be deleted, and if it can't be deleted, can't be disputed, and therefore keeps people honest because if they start backtracking on their word, you can call them out on it forever.
And there's people who don't understand technology. I've had somebody tell me who understands law, who understands like contract, things that you were even talking about, but then he thinks that artificial intelligence and Bitcoin are somehow the same thing. He doesn't know anything about computers. And it's funny, I saw this movie, they had one of those, it was a spy movie that came out, and they were acting like the artificial intelligence was taking over the world by changing history and deceiving everyone. But I was like, that's why blockchain is actually a good thing, because it kind of is a way to keep the information and the data accountable. Because if an artificial intelligence is not going to just crack the SHA-256 hash, they're not going to be able to just change all the information they want anywhere they want. So you can use AI to keep AI accountable, and or you can use the blockchain as the basis for that, I'd say. So having storing files, that's a way to keep the government accountable. That's a way to keep our knowledge accountable, to know, are we actually improving things the way they should be improved? Because when I say something, I believe in free speech. Maybe not everyone agrees with me, but when I say, hey, we need to look at Condorcet voting, or we need to do, we need to consider something, I want my speech to be there and be able to be disputed. Because if I think I'm right, then there's going to be some other people who are able to see it, and then somebody's going to have to prove me wrong. Regardless of whether it's the majority or not, it's better that the information is there and it's able to be read. And then as far as smart contracts is concerned, yeah, that's just a personal project that I was thinking of, maybe as trying is, if we could, I would want to talk with the S-Crypt guys and see if this actually makes sense. But if you could get a state machine like he was presenting, you could take the language that they use for writing smart contracts, essentially in something like Ethereum, and you should be able to port it over where you wouldn't have to do much to just run something on BSV, something more complicated, essentially. Because if you pay a gas, say you can't pay a no gas fees, right? But you can pay to update transactions. So if you can update a state machine, then you can add more updated versions of that state, essentially, or you can essentially pay, if not a node, you could potentially pay some other service that would be more on the edges of, say, the Terra node scheme, and they could update, that for you, but it would still kind of work. I'm not saying gas is like a completely bad idea, but it just doesn't you don't want to pay a centered node. A node is something that's supposed to be updating blocks. So you don't want to pay, that's not necessarily the definition of the thing that's going to be running a loop. But that's just how Ethereum, that's how they design their system. So that excites me. Like that aspect of it, having cheaper, like I went to a restaurant, just having a more efficient money system in general is important to me. Like I went to a restaurant, they charge 4% for any transaction, and I think it came to like 80 cents or something. So I was like, we could, keep paying $20,000 a year to have a whole bunch of customers come through here. And I did a calculation, and instead of paying $20,000 for, say, 100 customers on average a day for 365 days, you could instead pay about $3 total. So I was like, look, just that alone, like forget all these other aspects of BSV. Forget the fact that it's the only thing that should actually be considered money, because it's the only one it's a commodity that's a primary means of exchange. Okay, forgetting all of that, it's still 1,000 times cheaper. I'm sorry, I got a computer talking to me there. But, 1,000 times cheaper. I mean, just that alone, that should be, when Google came out, what they have, the PageRank algorithm. How does the PageRank algorithm work? It sorts all the websites by weights. It worked maybe, I don't know if you could say it works 10 times better than the other search engines. But if you got something that's 1,000 times more efficient, and just the cost, I mean, that's huge. That should be like, that's why I wrote them a note. I was just like, look, you guys could use this. I don't think Square, I think Square was on the side of Copa, but there's got to be some companies that will understand this and start writing, or I was going to say start writing code, but start making a point of sale system that can simply use BSV. Because right now, without Terranode, it's still efficient enough to be worthwhile using, I'd say. I mean, just today, like, I'd rather use BSV. If you go to a gas station, you pay 25 cents in US dollars. That sounds cheap, but when you compare it to how much you'd have to pay for a fee with BSV, it's like 25 cents to like $100,000 or something. It's like buying a house instead of paying a quarter, and sorry for the American, I don't know if you use probably use kilometers and
Yeah, that's fine. We can do miles, and we can do kilometers, and we can do yards. Either way.
Do you call them pets, or what do you use for the money?
What do we use for the money?
I've only stopped through there in the airport.
Yeah, we use British pound sterling, GBP.
So you just say that I'm gonna head, and I just called it money, but yeah, see, that's how ingrained. And would you say that that's actually should that, according to the definition of money, should that be considered money or not?
What? As in, should fiat currency be considered money?
Yeah, it's currency, but Craig Wright would say that it's currency, but not because it's recognized by the state. But then would it not be money because it's not it's not a commodity?
Well, currency is a circulating security. So, and a security is either, a gift card, a token, a voucher, a wristband, a certificate, anything that secures your entitlement to something else. But if that entitlement is removed, then that's when you end up with securities fraud. And fiat currency, again, people say they're a promissory note. Well, a promise is not a contract. And a promise can therefore not be enforced. and if it can't be enforced, it means there's no value to it, and since there's no value to it, you can't securitize it. So you cannot securitize a promise, and so a promissory note is securities fraud. But it's currency, because currency is a circulating security. It just happens to be fiat currency, which fits the definition of securities fraud. That's it. So it's currency that's meant to transfer and transport the value of the money, or the claim on the money. But if there's no claim on money, then the currency is fraud, and that's what we're dealing with at the moment. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember listening to one video that Craig was interviewed, and they just asked him something about what's the guy talking with him didn't necessarily didn't have a different definition of money and currency. But then Craig told him, he's like, well, currency has to be recognized by the state. That was his, that's what he said in that interview, at least.
I think I remember Craig saying currency is anything that's used as a medium of exchange in that current place and time. But the true definition of it, if you actually want to know what it is a circulating security, because a current flows and circulates. So when a security starts being used as a medium of exchange within a closed economic area or private community, it becomes a circulating security and referred to as currency. That is precisely what currency is, a circulating security.
Right, and then the definition of money I've heard was it's a commodity that's a primary means of exchange, which BSV as a commodity would then be actual money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's for the first time ever, what the Bitcoin white paper did was actually express how to commoditize data, and data can only be commoditized if it's extracted from an already commoditized network, and a commoditized network has to undergo a period of neutral organic growth, which is why when Craig started it, he recognized this and had to use a pseudonym and then step back and just let the project grow without any central point of influence, so that it wouldn't have any detrimental effects on its classification as a commodity. And so when
now is that according to like UCC, or which entity, which nation, I guess, even defined that you had to have that neutral time period?
Well, it's just you just have to have it, because like a commodity is only ever extracted or grown, and money as a medium of exchange would be no use if the money could just simply be inflated, because everybody would just simply grow as much money as they could. So therefore it has to be an element that is fixed in supply and extracted and effectively divisible amongst everybody in the economy, so that everybody could use it and it becomes common to everyone. That's just simply what a commodity is.
I want to change gears for a second here and talk about, if you don't mind, just a couple things. So I don't know if I figured out, how long have you been doing your YouTube, your channel?
So I started initially out on the Bitcoin SV channel, and there was a guy, Captain Bitcoin was his pseudonym, or Shembu Spain, and I think he started his channel in it was in 2017. Yeah, it was 2017 he started his channel, and then that carried on until I think it was like maybe 2018, and then when he stopped doing that, I just started my own channel. So I guess I've probably been doing my channel since 2018, but I've had two of my channels already deleted, just for explaining to people what Bitcoin is.
Really? On
Yeah, yeah,
YouTube?
yeah. They deleted two of my channels in 2 days.
Did you save those videos?
I didn't, unfortunately, because I wasn't actually expecting to be taken down. But actually, yeah, I probably have got some really old recordings on my hard drive somewhere.
So this actually answers another question, by the way, that you had asked me. What else? What else am I excited about? So actually, the censorship has been an issue. Like I've been blocked from being able to use the platform to buy anything. So I think that we can put social media and like video sharing on something like BSV. That's part of the reason why I was interested in like Filecoin, because I figured, you know, we need to be able to store data, like store files, but then have it there available for people to use. When you text someone, you know, you can use SMS, MMS, whatever these different protocols are, but really they should have a secure hash between these. Like when you message someone on on something that I would say would be certified the way I'd expect, every message that you put in a chat, say Signal, I don't think they necessarily do this, but one thing that they could do is that they could include a hash with every message so that you know that no message has been inserted or deleted. Nothing has been changed in that chat. And so for you to load the messages, it loads, it goes through and processes it, just like Git. You know, the whole idea of having this immutable chain of hashes is definitely not this is not a Bitcoin specific thing. This is how Git works, by Linus Torvalds. This is something that I used in my own code. You know, you can use SHA-256 is very useful. You can use it to just verify files or information whenever and wherever you want, basically. It's really easy, really useful. I don't get why people don't use it more often or talk about it more often, but it's there and it's available. And yeah, that's one thing that I really think that kind of stinks. Like I feel bad that happening. Your videos got taken down. But I'm hoping, you know, we could use Bitcoin. I don't know if you think the same way as I do about that. But,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally on board with that. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the first things that crossed my mind. I was just like, wow, we've now got a platform where we can upload our information to, and it can't be censored. I was like, this is huge, absolutely massive.
And Craig said something about using double hashes before his website got, ironically, his website got essentially censored or had to be taken down. But I was reading it, and on one of his blogs, he was explaining how you could use double hashing, essentially to separate out a tree, like a Merkle tree, so you could actually sell. There's two things you could do. One of them is you could sell to miners, the mining rig companies, without giving them the actual information, so that they can't steal it from you. You know, they can't just publish a block and get the block reward. But you could actually sell jobs for them to check the hashing with by using the double hash somehow. Because when you it was just one of the aspects, one of the things he was explaining on his blog. But the other thing was, like I said, you know, we don't like censoring. They said, what if somebody puts illegal content on there? He said the nodes could actually decide that they're going to make something illegal. And so the hash is still there to prove what if you have the original file, you can prove what's being censored, essentially. But you don't have to store the actual information itself, like the actual data itself on the node. you can just show that the node decided to block some, data or something, say they have some illegal videos or illegal images. He was talking about things like that in his blog post. It's more advanced Bitcoin stuff, but I mean, it's just, that's one of the ideas. Like, just when I try to tell people about Bitcoin, I try to tell them, like, learn what a hash is, because it's a fundamental aspect. It's very important to know that you can have a history, and you're just updating a history of these transactions.
Yeah.
It's, if they don't understand that, it's really hard for people to understand how it works, because they think, the everyday person thinks they're going to buy something digital and they're going to lose it. It's just going to disappear because it doesn't exist. They're like, I want to hold on to something. I've had friends tell me, I want to hold it in my hand, like gold. I can hold it in my hand.
Yeah.
But then they also say the same thing about dollars, but I'm like, look, they're printing more of those dollars. Like, this, you can hold a dollar in your hand, but it's not going to stop them from printing more of them, At least a Bitcoin, you can see its traceable history. It's cemented on all these servers, 50 servers around the world are going to have same copy of this history of this coin and where it went. That's going to be more secure. And you have to do something to make sure you can't lose, private key or whatever. But that's more of a different issue. You're not going to lose the coin some other way. You'd have to use the private key. That's a different. It's a very secure system. And the government, they're thinking about using it for the United States government. We have somebody running. He's not a Democrat or Republican. He's making his own party, and I think he's related to the Kennedy family. I think that's his last name is Kennedy, and he wants to put everything on blockchain.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, and I think you were mentioning. Did you mention him in your videos yet?
I think I might have just I might have spoken about it at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, because he gave a speech there along with Donald Trump. Yeah, they're both. I mean, I think they get the general gist of what Bitcoin is, but they don't understand, how Blockstream have corrupted it. But the double hash function you're talking about is huge. I mean, this is why I'm convinced that all these these BTC maxis, they don't actually truly understand the definition of a consensus mechanism. A consensus mechanism is a mechanism where, even though the miners are in competition with one another, they can still come to consensus over something on the network, like, naughty images of children that shouldn't be there. They can all agree and come to consensus on that needs to be gone. So then there's that double hash function that comes in. So you can actually hash that bit of information and then go back to it. But there has to be a way for the operators of the network to hash something that is not desirable on the network.
And that's one thing that I even had to admit, like, I was so mad when Judge Miller had made that his first declaration, and I even emailed the court. And one of the things I was mentioning was, why are you so lazy? You can't even study. Do you even know what double hashing is? I mentioned that, like, in the thing, but apparently he doesn't want to. He wants to make a judgment based on not based on studying and learning the actual facts. He wants to somehow judge it based on just whatever's presented or something,
Well, not even that. He didn't actually present it on the evidence that had been presented, because if he looked at the evidence that had been presented, then he wouldn't have come to the conclusion that he gave. So the conclusion that he gave was actually his own opinion. Because as Craig's lawyers pointed out, there are no allegations of forgery or fraud. I mean, the fact is, they should have objected every time Copa said, "You forged this, didn't you? You forged that." They should have objected every single time. But Judge Miller didn't sign his judgment because he knows that he would be holding himself accountable, and because he's the only one that's saying, "Oh, Craig is a liar and a fraud." Well, nobody else is saying that. and there's no evidence of that either. So he could actually be sued in his own personal and private capacity, which is why he didn't sign it. So I mean, but the main thing is though, when you understand what's actually going on in the court system today, it's absolutely outrageous. They're using people's legal fictions. Like Dr. Wright is not. Wright is Craig's surname, his surety name, which is the slave name of the Roman Empire, and then Doctor is just somebody who tours the dock before a ship comes in to port to make sure it's safe. And so, being a legal fiction, the Dr. Wright cannot create anything, it can't produce anything, it can't make anything. And so in his judgment, when he said, it's clear that Dr. Wright didn't write the white paper, didn't start the network, didn't produce blah, 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 blah. And he's correct, because Dr. Wright is a corporate entity, a legal fiction that can't do anything and has no human rights. But he knows what he's doing, because the fact is, Craig was communicating in court, and therefore he is a living man. So it's just complete fraud, mate, what's going on. It's unbelievable.
And that, everything you just mentioned there, I feel like most people don't know about that. And that's something that I remember learning about. Like, I listened to some people talking about this years ago, like well over maybe 12 years ago. Like, I was listening to some things about this and learning about it. Some of the topics we could probably talk about later on, because here's the thing. I arrived, so I have a duty that I got to accomplish, and if I keep talking with you, I might have to be interrupted a couple times.
It's all right, mate. Well, we've been going for 45 minutes, so it's a good time to wrap up, and we can do a part 2.
But there's some other things that I've been thinking about, because we could talk about stuff related to law, but maybe we could talk about some actual projects, like things that we could work on. Because part of I didn't really mention this, but when I was actually specifically getting interested in BSV, I didn't really have all this money that I just wanted to invest somewhere. It wasn't, I need something where the coin will go up. I just wanted to produce value, and I figured, I'm going to do something valuable and try to maybe make money just by doing a job, like making something valuable. So if I make a protocol or cryptocurrency or whatever it was, I was just thinking, I want to make some code that will be valuable and not just, waste my time trying to earn money doing other things, but doing it this way. And that's when BSV became that's when I really found out about it. I was not interested in having a coin and a number go up. So that's what when your friend says that, oh, they just want the number to go up. I was like, no, that was not me, especially at that time. Like, and I didn't even really have a lot of money I didn't have a lot of currency to, buy something, BSV anyway, at least not a significant amount. In fact, I wanted it to stay down because I figured maybe I'll get some more, I can earn some more and buy some more before it goes up, So that's what I'm interested in, utility. That's a big thing. That's what I like. That's what I'm interested in. And one of the things, I actually wanted to make a protocol. I don't know if I should say the name of it, but it's a funny name actually. But I wanted to make a protocol that doesn't need a blockchain at all. And it's a reputation system. So essentially, if you do business with someone or you encounter someone, you want to give them a rating of some type. Say, oh yeah, everything went well, or no, it didn't go well. You would save that, and they could set. It would still use public-private keys, and they would basically have like a wallet. I don't know if I'd call it a wallet because it wouldn't be cash, but it would be just reputation. Like you could call it like an identity maybe, and they would give you a rating. You could give them a rating, but it would only save it locally. But you'd have a recommendation to others when you do business with someone else. It copies all this information, and if they trust you, because scammers, they can produce 1,000 accounts, and all these accounts can try to say, oh yeah, thumbs up, 5-star. You could sell something on Amazon. You could have 1,000 accounts say, oh yeah, I bought this, but they're all scams. And so Amazon has to go in there and they have to verify, oh, did they actually buy it? And so I was thinking of making a protocol basically, or an app Uh, I'll tell you the name. I want to call it Trust Me, Bro.
Hey, I like it. Well, Connor Murray has actually built something very similar to that on BSV. I think it's called True Review.
Okay, nice. I don't know anything about that, so maybe they kind of did a similar idea. But yeah, then if you trust someone, it copies the information. If you don't trust them, it could maybe ignore the recommendations that you have. That way, anyone, and that kind of applies to search engines. Actually, search engines should actually work this way because you're searching for information that you're it's kind of gets complicated with explaining this with in English. It's almost easier to explain with graph theory, but basically there's a point where the trust flows in. As think of it like water. Like trust has to flow in before all the weights are decided. Like when Google's ranking everything, they're actually looking at websites linking to each other, and the more important a website is, the more ranking it has to recommend other websites. But what I'm saying is all that ranking has to come from the person searching or the person deciding. So if you're searching or deciding, do I trust this person or not? You start with your node, with yourself as 100% trust, and then it flows out from there. So if there's a scam out there, if there's 10,000 scammers, your flow's not going to reach them. They can create their own network of scam, but you'll never. The amount of trust that they'll get from you is not very high. They'd have to actually do valid business with someone that you trust or with you yourself in order to get that. So basically you'd be saving this big tree of information on everyone's identity wallet thing, and they wouldn't need to connect with any. I also had another idea, which was basically using Bitcoin to have a vending machine that works regardless of whether it's connected to the internet. So yeah, I'm full of ideas like this. I love computer science, and I'm maybe more opposite of your friend who I just want to buy something, number go up. I feel that way when I have some money that I want to invest. But when it comes to what I'm doing and what I want to do, it's not the same thing. It's not, I don't want to just, it'd be nice to make money and to invest and have something go up. But, that's like, to me, it's like a separate idea. It's not the same thing as what I'm doing.
Yeah, I am totally with you on that. And we've been going for 52 minutes here, and this has been awesome. So how about we close this off there and then come back to part two,
I definitely need to go though. So
yeah. All right, mate. Well, it's been great. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and everybody listening. I will upload this now, and then I'll look forward to our second chat.
All right, thanks.
All right, cheers, mate. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yep.